Hello, everyone, and welcome to WISP Presents How I Got into Sports Tech. This is a webinar series that we put on to inform and inspire people about this industry. So I'm Mary Lou McFarland, the CEO and founder of Women in Sports Tech. I've worked in this industry for most of the last 14 years in the athlete performance side of the business, but I'm fascinated with all aspects of sports technology and delighted that you all can join us while we dig in. So if you're new to WIST, we're a nonprofit organization that drives transformative growth opportunities for women and employers from the classroom to the boardroom at the intersection of sports, tech, and innovation. WIST develops and delivers programs, original content, and a global community that provide tangible value for women and employers through this fast-growing ecosystem. This webinar series, as I mentioned, provides an opportunity to learn from women and men about the array of opportunities in this industry and how to best position yourself for success at all stages of your career. This webinar today is focused on game-changing technologies improving youth sports experiences, a topic near and dear to my own heart, having raised two girls and been their coach when they were young. We're recording, everyone knows, so that the content can be viewed on demand on our website and then also on our new YouTube channel. I'm very excited to introduce our featured guests today who are on the front lines of this huge category of our industry and can serve as role models for all of us. The global youth sports market is projected to grow from 37 billion to 70 billion by 2030, with over 45 million youth athletes in the US alone. 76% of all kids play a sport at ages 6 to 12. 73% of kids 13 to 17 play a team or individual sport, according to Project Play at the Aspen Institute. Yet increasingly, the cost of play is becoming out of reach for many families. How can technology be used to create more equitable access to the opportunities? How can technology be used to improve experiences for the kids and their families? How can the most talented youth be identified and supported for future competitive play in college and potentially beyond, but most importantly, not dampen the joy of playing by too much interference from technology? So let's jump in. I'm really delighted to introduce you to our panelists. So Ami Kumar is the VP of Engineering at GameChanger. She leads a 90-plus person engineering team, including developers, platform engineers, QA, and data engineers and analysts. And WISP partner GameChanger believes that youth sports has the power to change lives on and off the field, and we agree. GameChanger is a technology company that provides simple and powerful products for youth sports teams and their communities. Their app provides world-class access to live game action, the statistics to inform teachings and help fuel growth, and solutions that rally community around a team. In 2016, GameChanger proudly joined the Dick's Sporting Goods family. And Ami began her career with GameChanger as an intern in 2014. So what an incredible journey to where you are today, Ami. Ami has her undergrad degree in computer science from Columbia and is working on her master's in computer science from Georgia Institute of Technology. So welcome, Ami. Jen Bryant is High Performance Director for Winter Sports with also a partner of WIST, U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. Jen currently contributes to USOPC's significant work in talent identification and using technology and data analytics to track athlete progression throughout their careers. Her team spends a lot of time on talent transfer and pipeline retention, though they don't actively engage in traditional youth sports programs per se. Jen has her undergrad bachelor's degree from the University of Bath in sports and exercise science and a master's in exercise physiology from the incredible Loughborough University in the UK, where we have lots of students come to us from Loughborough. So welcome, Jen. Nice to see you. And last but not least, Kimberly Kitchens is the GM for youth clubs in the new League One volleyball organization, which I am super excited about. Volleyball is the most played girls sport in the US, and our women's national team won Olympic gold, so it's only fitting that our country deserves finally a full season professional league that is supported by a vibrant club and youth ecosystem. Love is a first of its kind community reimagining the future of volleyball and is launching this pro league from the grassroots up, built from a foundation of ambitious junior volleyball clubs located across the country. Kim has her Bachelor's of Science in Computational Biology from Brown and an MBA from Harvard Business School. Kim comes to the sports business from other industries, so it's going to be really interesting to learn your journey, Kim, from where you've been to the sports tech world. So let's jump in with a really informal conversation, and we'll try to leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end for any questions from our audience. So absolutely delighted to be here with you all. Let's start by introducing yourself and tell us the background of how you got to where you are now. We know the journey to success is not a straight line up. It's often lots of, pivots and opportunities to do different things, but it's not a straight line up. So tell us how you got there. So why don't we start with you, Ami, and then we'll go Kim and Jen.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me here. So I did actually spend the entirety of my career here at GameChanger, so it's been a really interesting journey and maybe somewhat uncommon within the tech industry overall. I have spent almost a decade here at GameChanger. I was an intern at GameChanger when I was in college, actually. I started full-time after that, and since then I have done a bunch of different stuff here. I started as an engineer, so I did mobile engineering. I did some back-end engineering, some web engineering, went into management, moved on and progressed to being a director, and now I'm the VP of engineering here. So a lot of different stuff within the space. I've tried a lot of different things, and I also am getting my master's on the side. It's focused in machine learning, which has been a really interesting trend and direction that the industry has been really embracing recently. So I would say that in many ways, it was quite different than what you see in tech, where folks are really moving around jobs a lot more than I have done. I have definitely tried and done a lot of different stuff here at GameChanger, and I knew very early on that I was interested in management and helping people grow their careers and mentoring people. And that's always something I gravitated towards, even when I was in college, even before that, kind of teaching people about tech or, coaching people and things like that has always been something that I have enjoyed. And so that's something I was working towards very early on, and I didn't expect to necessarily grow this quickly within GameChanger as I have, but it's been a wonderful journey that I've been very, very grateful for.
Fantastic. How did you get your internship in the first place?
Yeah, I actually found GameChanger at a career fair at Columbia.
Awesome.
And so it was one of those things that felt like a happy chance in some ways, right?
Yes.
I happened upon some folks from GameChanger there. I really clicked with the people that I was talking to. I found the product so interesting, and I definitely found the mission really, really engaging. And so it was a really great internship, and really fortunate that I chose to go for that internship.
Fantastic. Thank you. Kim, how about you?
Hey everyone, so great to be here. And Ami, I just have to comment that I do use the GameChanger app, not in my job, but as a mom with kids in youth sports, to check the baseball schedule every week. So, and get messages from the coach on when we're changing practice times, et cetera. So it's a really good app, because I think the baseball teams have switched apps every year, and I've really enjoyed GameChanger. So they're landing on that one. So thank you for having me here. Just a quick background on my career. When I started in college, the advice that my dad gave me was study what you would love. And then when you get into a job, you will learn on the job kind of how the skills that you need to be able to succeed in that job. And so when I went to school, I'm probably going to date myself. It was even before technology was as big as it is today. As we think about modern technology, I didn't even have a cell phone when I went to college. I think I got one my junior year. I chose I love biology, and I really liked logic and computer science. So I combined the two and studied computational biology when I was an undergrad. And when I was trying and talking to companies about internships, I was more interested in moving into management and kind of operations management and business. And I found that many people wanted to hire someone right out of undergrad that had an experience in biology or such to go work in the lab. And that was too slow paced for me. I needed something that was faster paced. And so I kind of happened into a career in consulting. I worked for a company called Bain & Company for my first 5 years. And one thing that I loved about working there is in consulting, you get access to so many different industries. So I got to learn about different industries and how you can apply similar business practices across versus in many industries. And so as I've gone in my career, as Mary Lou mentioned, I haven't necessarily said I want to be in sports, although there's many people that want to be in sports. And I think that's very admirable that you have that direction. I've always been a little, I don't really care what industry I'm in. I want to be in an industry where I believe I can have an impact. And that's what's always been important as I've thought about my career. The other thing that, I thought what I loved about my beginning my career is it taught me how to think critically, to ask the hard questions, how to work collaboratively, and how to communicate. I think those are all really important things as you grow a career, especially on the business side of things. So I was at Bain for 5 years. I did have the opportunity to go get my MBA, and they did fund that, which is a huge benefit. So if if you get that opportunity, it is a huge blessing to have gotten that gift in my life. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about master's degrees later on, but it was a huge gift. And then after I left Bain, I dabbled a little bit in some startups, and then it was at the Intercontinental Hotels Group for a number of years, which is a large hotel chain that owns a number of different brands. The ones you'll recognize the most are Holiday Inn, Holiday Inn Express, Intercontinental. So I worked for them in a number of different strategy and operations roles. And then I spent the last couple of years at Compass Residential Real Estate. And I was really attracted to this company because it was in a startup phase and it was trying to transform real estate by using technology. And I'm kind of in a belief that we are in a world where if you're not tech enabled, you're not going to be successful. And so that was really what attracted me to that company. And then through a network of mine, a friend of mine or someone that I was on a board with, I live in Atlanta, was really good friends with the CEO of Love, and they were looking for somebody to run their youth club business that had a mix of operations and strategy experience. And so that is how I kind of through a network got this job here, and I love it. It's amazing. Love is an amazing organization. We are growing fast. And my role here is very focused on central support team that supports all of our youth clubs across the country. But my career was definitely not straight line up. It was very jungle gym. I did a lot of lateral moves, but every move, it's about learning a new skill so that you can apply that skill into your next opportunity.
Very jungle gym. I like that. That's what I could say about my own path. And I would say what I agree with you is, when we define sports tech, it's very broadly because every role in the sports industry is powered by technology. So that totally resonates with me. Thank you, Kim. And Jen, tell us how you got here into the role you're in with USOPC.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, just to reiterate, thanks for having me on. And it's actually, Kim, listening to you about the do what you love. I was sports mad growing up, always wanted to be in sports, so it was a pretty natural path in that sense. But was able to go to Bath University to study sports sciences. My background is in the sciences. I was very fortunate that during my third year of my degree, I took a year-long industry placement, which was a fairly common thing to do at the university I was at. And it was the year of the London 2012 Games. So I was able to work for Paralympics GB in that year, which was fantastic. And just to give me an opportunity, kind of first dabble in high performance sports. So that was kind of where it all started for me. I was based out of the university still. I was actually playing field hockey at the time. And the British Skeleton program were also based there. And was really fortunate when I finished up my final year to get a kind of summer internship opportunity with the British Skeleton team, which led into 7 years of standing on the side of sliding tracks, predominantly in sports science support, performance analytics, a lot of time holding a video camera, cutting video at the end of training sessions, up until the 2018 Games, so in Pyeongchang, which was really a really successful game for the team, an amazing experience, and really that was kind of a real deep dive again into kind of high performance Olympic sport. But the skeleton program I worked in was also entirely built from talent transfer, and there isn't a sliding track in GB. at all. Nobody sides from a youth standpoint. It's entirely talent transfer, which is actually really fascinating. They've been really successful. It's a real privilege to have been a part of it. But it ignited a passion in that area for me as well. In 2019, I had the opportunity to come to the USOPC. Not that the accent suggests it, but my family are actually from South Carolina. So it isn't as big a life move as it maybe sounds. But moved over to Colorado Springs for a role working with our winter sport high performance team. And I've been in this current role for about a year now. So yeah, it's funny to look back on the journey that took me to being a winter sports specialist. I can ski averagely well, but that's about the extent of it from growing up. But I seem to have found a little bit of a niche, and yeah, excited going moving forward and working with all of our winter sports here in Team USA.
And you're in Park City and you're getting a little bit of snow, which is super exciting. It's almost,
oh yeah, winter's coming. Winter's coming.
And I think I told you this summer I had the honor of participating at the USOPC Performance Summit in Colorado Springs, and I got to meet Sylvia Hoffman, who is probably falls under your purview. Is she on your?
Does.
That's so fantastic. Just hearing about the track sports and winter sports, just literally the adrenaline of that just literally kind of blows my head off my body. Have you done it? Have you been down the tracks yourself?
I've done it twice, and twice only, and that's plenty for me.
Did you go with a lot of skeleton, or did you do the bobsled? Or I
did skeleton, and I this sounds ridiculous saying it, but I've been told many times that it's actually the safest. So yeah.
Well, I just can't fathom it. I love watching it, but that's one sport I do not have a desire to even try it. Well, that's super interesting. So we have some interesting backgrounds here. I really like how you've all, you're showing us different paths to where you are. So tell us about your current role. Like, what is your day-to-day like? Just so if someone were to try to envision what you're doing all day, every day. Who would like to go?
I'm happy to go first. So my day-to-day is more of a general management role. So I have 47 youth clubs across the country in the US for volleyball, or locations that roll up to me. And then I have a support team that helps support all these clubs. So I do a lot of cross-functional work of, hey, this club really could use some help with marketing, connecting with our marketing team, helping them connect with the youth club. Or on the tech side of things, I think many of our clubs are tech enabled and use a lot of technology within their youth clubs. And so it's something that's really critical to us. And we are very focused on how can we bring the best technology to our youth clubs so that they can better serve their customers in what they do. So I liaise a lot with our technology team and helping to identify what is the best tools that we can use across our ecosystem of clubs. And then also with our connection to pro, as Mary Lou mentioned, League One Volleyball is launching a women's pro league. And so we work very closely together about how we connect our youth clubs with our pro league. So a lot of operations tackling things like, oh, this person has decided they want to leave. How do we find someone else to cover for them? Lots of day-to-day operational things with running youth clubs.
And Kim, are you the leader, or are you involved with negotiating and managing the tech stack? Are you trying to have an integrated tech stack with all these clubs?
Yeah. So the way that we have brought the clubs into League One Volleyball is through acquisition. So they all come with their own unique tech. And so that is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have right now is we are shifting everyone to the same tech, but that is a slow process and it's a lot of change management. So when you're working with a distributed group of clubs, and there's also what's interesting in the tech space for kind of the youth club type sports, youth sports, is that many of the youth clubs and youth sports out there are smaller organizations. I feel there's a trend now of this aggregation within volleyball or other sports. There's 3Step that you see doing this. League One Volleyball is doing it specifically with volleyball. There's the I9 Sport Network that keeps getting bigger. But there isn't great technology out there for a network of individual clubs. And so be able to have visibility into what each club is doing. And first of all, having the same tech is important, but there isn't always that admin level. And so that's something that we've been challenged. And we're also a startup. We're only in our third year. So as we grow, we're trying to think through, and we think about the pro league, how do you have tech that links so that we can really build that ecosystem so that our youth athletes can then interact with our pro athletes as well. So tech is a huge challenge. And while I have a lot of input into the decisions and am a key decision maker on some of them, it's very collaborative because sometimes the decisions we're making are not just for the youth clubs, but across the entire ecosystem of love as well. So we do have a digital technology leader that works very cross-functionally with us, but I meet with them regularly.
Fantastic. I could see that would be the challenge, right? Is integrating everyone's unique processes into one. You're kind of taking chaos, and that's what startups do. We take chaos and create a little bit more order, a little bit more operational efficiency and that type of thing. So super exciting. Never a dull moment for you then, for sure. Jen, how about your day-to-day?
Yeah, sure. And so kind of my primary responsibilities, I get to work with the 8 winter sport national governing bodies across the US. So without getting too in the weeds, those are the individual organizations that run the sports on a day-to-day basis. For example, US ski snowboard, USA bobsled skeleton, etc. I work closely with the high performance teams for each of those organizations around high performance planning. Where can we make the biggest impact with the resources we have available? I also work with a really great sports science team. There's a data team within the USOPC that we work with and deploy direct resources, whether to athletes specifically or to programs as a whole. So my role is really kind of connecting all of those dots, and then more broadly, the challenge and opportunity of how do we put Team USA back on the top of the Winter Olympic podium by 2030. So we're at 4 or 5 now, depending on how you like to interpret the medal table. But the aim is to be at the top by 2030. So a lot of those are exploring new areas in technology and the equipment that we use, being world leaders in that space. Data aggregation, data sharing, talent identification for sure. When we created the plan, we were 10 years out from 2030. And in that instance, the athletes that are going to go on and compete probably may not even be engaged in their sport at that point, might be doing other sports or really early in pipelines. So kind of that longer term goal of what we're looking at for the future and doing it in a really sustainable way.
Fantastic. And it's occurring to me that you have built-in deadlines for things. You can't change the roadmap like it happened. The Olympics are happening and you have to run towards that and I suppose work everything backwards from that on your timeline, but no flexibility there. You're super interesting. I love that. Well, so, and Ami, tell us about GameChanger Day to Day. What a neat organization, just full of really talented people.
Of course, yeah. And it's really interesting because in many ways I am on the other side of the, sports tech decision making that Kim was talking about earlier too. And so our responsibility here at GameChanger and our mission, which Mary Lou did such a good job of covering earlier, is to empower youth communities within sports, right? We want to elevate the next generation through youth sports, and we think that sports are very valuable to young people, both on and off the field, and that there's a whole community that exists around sports. It's the parents, it's the coaches, and all of these folks are necessary. The grandparents, by the way, some of our most ardent fan base are the grandparents who aren't living in the same states as their grandkids, and they want to follow along their grandkids' games. So our responsibility is providing an experience that ties that community together and makes that experience much more connected and much better for everybody involved. And so my responsibility within that as the lead of the engineering organization, one is to lead my department and another is to really contribute to the executive leadership team here at GameChanger. And so those 2 responsibilities tend to take up most of my time. Within that mission of GameChanger, engineering's responsibility is to really execute and deliver the technology itself, right? And make sure that it's maintained well, that it performs at a high standard, it has high quality, that we execute on essentially the roadmaps and the strategic vision of the company. And so my role is to really drive that. I need to make sure that the engineering team is delivering the things that it needs to deliver. I need to make sure that our quality stays high, our performance stays high. But also I need to create a healthy work environment, a productive work environment for everybody that works here. I want to make sure that everyone feels challenged and that they're doing really interesting things here and are also working efficiently and making sure that we're, driving our business goals. And so when I was thinking about this question, I think it's hard to kind of break it down day by day for me because each day, and for all of us, I'm sure each day is so different. So I was thinking about it more from a week to week perspective. And I think there's a combination of maybe high level, big picture things that I'm thinking about every week, and then very operational things that I'm working on every week. So at a high level, I always like to have at least one or two, between 1 and 3 usually, top level problems that I'm trying to solve and that I'm trying to drive. So one thing I've been thinking about a lot recently is how do we improve quality at GameChanger? How do we track it better? How do we have better metrics around it and better cadences for tracking that kind of thing? And those high level goals involve a ton of working with a bunch of people and solving this problem together. So, talking to a bunch of people, collecting evidence, collecting metrics, creating plans, delegating parts of those plans to different folks, coordinating that work across a bunch of different people. So there's one category of these kind of bigger picture things that I'm driving. There's also a bunch of operational stuff that's going on every week. I'm meeting with all of my peers. I'm meeting with all of my reports. I'm meeting with the rest of the leadership team, trying to meet as much as I can with different engineers on the ground. I can't meet with all 100 of them every week, but I try to stay aligned and meet with them on some cadence as well to get feedback and to share context and do all of those types of things. So definitely lots of meetings as a part of it too. A lot of the job is collaborative. Most of everything I do is working with different people on different parts of projects. A lot of it is making it very clear what kinds of things I'm trying to drive so that people always know what's on my mind and what things I'm trying to work on and trying to fix. And a lot of times there's just, operational stuff to work on as well, like budgets and, hiring and things like that. So it's a mix and a balance of a bunch of different stuff. And each week and each day really looks different depending on what those top level things I'm driving, what's going on at the company. Is it a hiring spree? Are we kind of focused on budgeting now, right? Like it's quite different at different parts of the year, but a lot of it is collaborative. A lot of it is thinking really big. A lot of it is working with different people and coordinating a lot of different people.
And I'm curious, how many of this large team that you're responsible for, how many report to you, and how nimble are you in organizing everyone in ways that become more and more efficient?
Yeah. So I have 3 reports right now, actually, and then each of them have between 3 to 5 reports, I would say right now, and then each of their reports has around 5 to 8 reports right now. So that's kind of how it cascades out. I think that who I'm working most closely with very much depends on what I am working on at the time. So sometimes I'm spending a ton of time with my peers and maybe some of the people across different departments trying to work on something for the leadership team. There's times that I'm working more closely with the people reporting to me or even the people reporting to them on solving some kinds of problems. So I think it's very dependent on the nature of what I'm doing, but either way, there's a lot of jumping on quick calls. There's a lot of like creating quick meetings or talking things out too. And I think you do have to be quite nimble, as you said, on jumping around and talking to a lot of these different groups.
Well, what's interesting and impresses me is that as GameChanger has grown from being a startup to a fairly large organization with significant revenues, but you still operate very startup-y. Like there's a lot of agile organization and things that are happening. And I think that's a testament to part of why I think GameChanger is so successful.
It is wild how quickly the team has grown as well. When I started, I think the engineering team was around 15 people at the time, and now it's over 90 people. So it's grown quite significantly too. And with that, there does come a lot of scaling challenges, and you have to completely rethink how you're doing processes and how you're collaborating with each other and how you're getting to know different people at the company, which has been a really interesting challenge to navigate through. But yeah, we do like to continue to operate as a startup. We do like to keep meetings really short and only schedule them when absolutely necessary, keep conversations quick and direct and to the point. work in a very agile environment, work very iteratively, and make sure that we're kind of learning new things and shipping stuff all the time. So there's some core tenets and core values that we've kept and stuck with within the engineering team and within GameChanger, which has really helped us kind of stay true to that fast moving startup kind of environment, even as we've grown so quickly.
For sure. And that's something, Love, I'm sure you're building, and I know USOPC is building a similar type of environment, or working towards that for sure. And this may be a different answer for all of you, but and it may not necessarily be in your experience today, but what would you say are barriers that parents and kids have, because there's such a pay to play environment now, in terms of the cost to participate, right, in competitive youth sports? So I'm curious, how is your organization working to improve equitable access? I mean, Jen, we could start with you. If I'm a young kid in Park City, maybe not Park City because that's where you're based, but I'm at a mountain in Maine, and I really, really discover that have all the attributes of a bobsledder. Like, how are you identifying this talent and making it accessible? Each of you, but we'll start with Jen. Uh-oh, Jen, you're muted.
Oh, someone was going to do it. No, really good question. And so for us, we work a bit with our venue partners. I mean, you raised Park City and Utah Olympic Legacy Foundation and out around Lake Placid in terms of connecting kind of the local community with opportunities and access to facilities. I think the broader piece for us, as we think specifically about winter sport, is actually raising barriers and exposure to winter sports for those that don't live at the bottom of ski hill. And we have so much talent in this country that kind of through our traditional recruiting means just may not even know the sport of skeleton exists, for example, or cannot get on skis or doesn't ski once a year with their family. And how can we use technologies, one, to kind of broaden exposure and awareness of some of the sports that we have, but also we've done a lot of work with a partner of ours in kind of virtual combines and virtual recruiting. So being able to, what would have been historic in-person events, can we do those virtually? That was really successful through COVID, and something that's continued, which has been really impactful. So I think that's probably the bigger thing. And then it's how can we kind of balance what's the necessary kind of sports specific exposure in a given, whether it's aerials or something else, and maybe are there ways that we can kind of generate some sport exposure alongside the sports that you have easier access to. Like, the more we learn around multi-sport experience, it's really beneficial for development. So it isn't a bad thing that you may not be skiing every day, but how can we run these things parallel and kind of make the overall journey to the top probably more effective and easier for sure.
Fantastic. Ami, Kim, what would you all say?
Sure. Sorry, go ahead, Kim.
No, all right, I'll go. With volleyball, the great thing about volleyball, it is a very popular sport, and it is something that you don't, that you can kind of pick up with just a ball, and even if you don't have a net, right? But club volleyball is a expensive sport to play. There's a lot of travel and the cost for paying coaches. And so one thing that we do at League One Volleyball is that we recognize that it is expensive. And one of our goals is to increase access. And we like to think of a very mission-oriented organization that we want to grow the sport of volleyball in the US. And that doesn't mean just creating more elite athletes and by creating a pro league. It also means by growing the sport at the developmental ages and in the developmental leagues too. If you think about it, 90%, 95% of the people playing are not going to play at a professional level. And there's so many benefits that you can achieve. So I think we are working with our youth clubs to introduce programming that's not necessarily elite, but that can be accessible to others at a lower cost so they can still experience the joy of a team sport. And then the second is for those elite athletes, we do have a Love Foundation, and we work with each of our clubs on granting financial aid where we can. And as we grow the pro league, that's part of our strategy around sponsorships. That any sponsorships that we have, they're going to have to, part of that sponsorship value that we receive, part of that money will go to the foundation. we haven't quite done it yet, but there's a lot of creative ways that you can think about when you buy. I'm wearing a Love sweatshirt here, but as you buy merch, how do we contribute a part of that to our foundation so that we're constantly making it part of our culture to give back and provide access. And our vision is eventually that hopefully we'll be able to partner and have lower cost club volleyball facilities and camps and clinics in underserved communities in the US. So that's, it's something that when we founded League One Volleyball, it's a really important part of our mission. And then on the tech side, I think the tech of being able to provide access to be able to connect with a pro athlete across all of our gyms. So, that's something that with our pro athletes to show that it is achievable for those that are going to be elite athletes, and how we can bring those into our gyms or through technology, connect them with other youth clubs across the country so that they can have access to those individuals through, as simple as a video chat or a video that we're sharing across a specialized platform that all of our athletes have access to.
Well, it's pretty amazing to provide role models, right? What we've learned, and I know, having raised two daughters, is the value of having a role model, maybe even just a few years older than you, and you're drawn to this sport, but then how are you, it sounds like you're providing resources for maybe kids who don't have the same privilege as others, and you're helping to fund them, because I think that's critically important for this whole ecosystem. Ami.
Yeah, this is definitely something that we are seeing across different markets in sports, as the costs are definitely going up and up. And also a trend we're seeing is that more and more people are joining some of the more prep kind of teams instead of their high school teams, which sometimes come with higher associated costs as well. And so right now, there's sort of two tracks, I would say, that GameChanger is really thinking about when it comes to providing better access. One of it is entirely through the product, and that is we have a freemium model at GameChanger. So we do want to provide the core functionality of our product for free. And so the live video, the kind of core, what we call the game stream, but essentially seeing an animated version of what's happening at the game, the scheduling, the messaging, all of those things are offered for free within the app so that they're accessible to everybody, and they don't add yet another cost to the already mounting costs within the other parts of people's sports experience. And really the foundation of GameChanger was to provide tools for coaches for free. And so our coaching and kind of administrative side of GameChanger is entirely free for all of our features, actually. And GameChanger really started as a way to make coaches' lives easier. We saw coaches as, a group of youth coaches in particular, as a group of folks who were often doing this for free. We're doing this out of the kindness of their hearts to help kids and stay closer to their children, maybe on the teams as well. And we're really providing a ton of impact to these kids' lives. And so if there's anything we can do to make their lives a little bit easier, why not take that step? And so that's one of the major things that we have thought about through the product is what do we keep free and completely available for all of our user base. We are actually exploring an interesting new track that's still very much in its infancy, so I don't have much to say about it right now, but we are spinning up more community initiatives outside of the scope of our product as well to address, issues of access or things like that. And so, one of my newest colleagues was recently hired her name is Rebecca, as a VP of community at GameChanger, and she's really exploring ways that we can more on the ground, more in a hands-on way, be involved in the communities, do work in the community, potentially partner with other organizations to, help athletes in the community as well. So I think there will be a lot of more stuff to say here in the coming months for GameChanger. It's really a very new initiative that we're starting to explore.
Fantastic. Well, we do know that girls quit sports at twice the rate of boys by the time they're 14, and they quit STEM because of the social stigma. So we do a lot of work here at WIS to provide content from role models who work in the industry, just like you women here. And I think that can make a huge difference, right? You don't have to know the person for them to necessarily be your role model. But we want to destigmatize working in tech. I mean, it's exactly what I wish I had had when I was younger. So, and it kind of leads to, let's jump to just your educational paths. It's a coincidence that you all have your masters, but I'm curious what advice you would give for someone who might be an undergrad or they're in their early career and they're trying to decide whether, what are the factors that they should consider in terms of going back for a master's. Who wants to go first?
I can go. I think with a master's, I was fortunate to get one, but I will say that it is, especially the master's I got, which was an MBA, which is more of a general one. It is a very expensive degree, depending on where you go and such. But if I had to do it again, I would have waited longer in my career to get an MBA because I would have had more work experience to bring and contribute to my class. And if I had been in a career where I felt that not in a career, but depending on where I was in my job, the job I was in, you basically had to get an MBA to advance. And so at that point, it was important for me to be able to get it, to be able to move to the next level. But there are many jobs, and I have many colleagues and friends that are now at the same level as me or higher, and they never got an MBA, and it was because they didn't need it. So I think that if you are in the right company that gives you the right development opportunities, there's so much that you learn on the job. And I would say even with MBA, I probably have retained 10 to 15% of what I actually learned in the classroom. What it did teach me to do was how to think, and I got a great network from it. But it is not I don't think it's necessary. When I'm looking at candidates, I rarely I'll scan their education, and I think it's important that you have some education on there, but I look much more at work experience and talk more about work experience when I'm looking to hire individuals. So I think, and especially in tech, there's so much that you can learn on the job than practically at school. So while some level of schooling is very critical, I think that our world is shifting where master's degrees, depending on what industry you're in and what's required, may not be as mandatory as they have been in the past.
Yes, and we encourage employers when you're hiring to look for skill set and talent and potential and values and interpersonal skills and all of those things, as much as or more than, where did you get your degree? Because it can be such a barrier for people. What would you all say? Ami, Jen?
Yeah, I'll jump in. No, I would agree. I mean, I did get my master's straight after I finished my undergrad. It was a requirement to go into kind of any of the science roles within the British sports system at the time to do that, and I had some good advice to go ahead and get it done. But I wasn't somebody that thrived in the classroom setting. I referenced my internship beforehand, and that was really where I felt at my best, and those opportunities to be around coaches, athletes, doing the work there. So I agree, where it's a necessity, I'm really glad I did it because it allowed me to go on to do the things that I've been able to do. But I also would say 90% of what I learned and why I am where I am now is because of the opportunities I've had in work experience or internship, and those have carried through, for sure. So again, understanding in certain spaces is absolutely critical, but the on the ground learning the role has been for me super beneficial, and that's something we look for. Kind of how are you working in those tough environments that we see in the world that we work in?
Mm-hmm. Very helpful. And it's interesting that you had to have it, right? It wasn't even an option for you coming up in the UK. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what the two of you said. My experience in engineering has been that it is not a requirement by any means. I don't think that, at least from my experience, employers are necessarily looking at that. It's a lot more about past work experience and how you can, answer questions in interviews and present yourself there. I personally took a bit of a break between my undergrad and starting my master's. I am not doing my master's necessarily because I think it's going to give me a leg up in terms of how people view my experience. It's just that I found a topic I was really passionate about and really wanted to dig into. I've always been a bit of a school nerd, and so going through the school process, I like learning through that kind of format. And I feel like I got enough of a break between the two that I was able to really approach school in a very different way than I did my undergrad. It's not about checking a bunch of boxes. I don't care what grades I end up getting. What I care more about is what I get out of it and the skills that I'm able to use and transfer to my day to day, which was a context that I understood in theory in my undergrad, but I don't think I truly understood it until I'd actually had some time in the workforce, because you are able to kind of pinpoint what is and is not going to be valuable to remember when you're going through your schooling. And so it very much changed the way I approach school. And I'm very glad I took that break. And I think that I'm getting a lot more out of my degree now than I would have if I went into it right after my undergrad. So I would say within engineering, it makes a lot of sense to do if you're interested in diving into a topic further. But the great thing about engineering and technology in general is that there's so many resources online to learn these things. There's YouTube videos, there's online courses, there's books, there's activities, like there's a lot of ways to learn it. And so I would really gravitate towards the style of learning that works the best for you. And I think that, you know, a master's degree, particularly if you're doing it part-time with a full-time job, is a big effort lift, right? So if you are going into it, you should make sure that you're really interested in doing that, and, you know, you're interested in the subject matter itself, and this is the best way for you to learn because it's not a requirement necessarily for this industry. What I would also suggest is if there's any particular companies or that you're interested in, or particular folks in the industry whose paths that you find really compelling, I would just check out a lot of LinkedIn profiles and see how many of these folks have a master's, where are they learning, what kind of certificates are they getting. Like, a lot of people post this kind of stuff on LinkedIn, and it's a great way to fact check some of the information we're giving you today, and kind of confirm for yourselves, you know, for the industry you're interested in, what you find, what seems necessary.
And is your master's you're currently getting, are you online and you're doing it
Yes.
while working full-time, leading a team of 90 plus people? So when are you taking care of yourself and eating dinner? And what's your life like doing that while you're working?
Yeah, it is a lot of time and a lot of energy. So it is online, it is part-time. I am very, very careful to not overburden myself. I'm taking one class a semester. I don't want to do more than that. I have more than enough time because it is a part-time degree to go at that pace, but that does mean it takes a very long time to complete the entire degree.
Yep.
I think in terms of balance, I am still working on finding that right balance, to be honest, because it is difficult. I think the most important thing, and this is something I wasn't great at in my undergrad and have gotten much better now at, is planning ahead and scheduling. So I think the more you're doing that, the more you're thinking ahead to when you're doing what, the more you can kind of filter in, you know, free time into your day-to-day too. And so that's really important. But yeah, I think just reminding myself why I'm in my master's, it's not about, you know, getting the top grades or anything. It's about what I'm learning. And if I'm not sleeping enough, I'm not going to learn anything. If I'm rushing through the material, I'm not going to learn anything. So I think it's a balance that I'm still learning and trying to figure out, to be honest. But I do think that just really planning ahead and making sure that you're allocating time for yourself and your schedule as well is really important.
And you said something key there. We're all still learning, right? We're all still learning and growing. And that's, you know, having a growth mindset, and coupled with the work ethic, coupled with the desire to lead a balanced, healthy life. It's all something that we all strive for, which kind of takes me to my next question for you all. What advice would you have for your younger self, given where you are today? Could you have seen yourself here? And what advice would you have given? What would, if you look back, what advice would you give yourself when you were a senior in high school?
I can take a stab at that one. I think first and foremost, it would be kind of to be willing to get stuck in and not be too kind of defined by what opportunities you want to seek. As I said, like the idea that I'm now sat in an office in the US working in winter sport is not where I would have necessarily seen myself coming out of high school, but I knew I wanted to be in performance sport, and that kind of series of weird instances and opportunities that arose have led me here. So I would say that kind of ride the wave and see where it takes you, and people are always looking for help. As I said, spent a lot of time holding an iPad at the side of a track, and that, you know, has evolved over time. But yeah, that would be the biggest thing.
Kim, Ami?
I would say that as you think about your future career, I think it's always important to have some goals in mind, but don't be afraid if you end up in a different place than those goals, and it's okay that goals evolve. And then as you're thinking about your next job or your next career, or your first job, I think that it matters more who you work for than what you do. Because who you work for is how you are going to learn and develop, and is going to be a much better experience. So even if it might seem like the dream job at the dream company, and you are in the interview process and the person that you're going to report to seems like a jerk, yeah, you may want to take it, but I will tell you, you will have a much better experience and learn a lot more and be happier and be willing to contribute more if you work for somebody that cares about your development and cares about you as a person, and can give you that advice.
That is very much what we know, and the research backs you up there, right? The culture is everything, and especially young talent today, you're interested in the culture, the inclusivity. Do you feel like you can belong there, or you'll just go look somewhere else, right? So in fact, that's great news for the industry, right? To make sure that you do build an inclusive culture where people can learn and feel like they're respected and valued for their own lived experiences, their own backgrounds. Yeah, that's terrific advice. Ami, how about you?
If you go work for a different company than maybe your dream company, you're going to learn a lot of skills, and that's going to open up doors at that dream company later too. So don't stress if you don't get that job at that dream company. It doesn't mean that door is shut forever. Go where you're accepted, and work hard, build a great reputation, and more doors will open for you later.
And we say fail forward fast, those of us in startups. Like, if you didn't get this job that you thought you wanted, there's the better job just around the corner. You just have to keep your chin up and keep going, because the universe does, if you, like we said, if you continue to work hard and aspire to have good role models and mentors, the right job will be yours. You just can't get down if it's not the one that you think you want today. Maybe you don't get it, but the better job is just around the corner.
I would echo a lot of that. I think the advice I would give myself going back is to not fixate too much on what I feel like I should do, and just, let myself be guided by what I'm passionate about and what I'm interested in. One quick anecdote from my life is I started my undergrad as a physics major, and I was really interested in the subject, and I thought that's what I wanted to do in my life. And I found that with my computer science classes, I was the most interested and excited about doing the homework related to those classes. I would, go back to my dorm room and start working on my coding projects right away. And I was so excited about them. And I kind of, after some time realized that was a sign that this is what I wanted to be doing, and this is what I was supposed to be doing. So I think that there's a lot of time and energy and effort and, hurt feelings that go behind trying to follow things that we feel like we need to do, or that somebody else has done, or, following some path that doesn't feel authentic to ourselves. And that's not always the best thing to do. So I would really let things that you're passionate about drive how you spend your time and energy.
Awesome. I agree with all of that. And we have some questions in the Q&A, and if anyone else has any, go ahead and drop them in. One question we have is, how do you see technology impacting the way young athletes train and compete? Like, how is it impacting their performance? Again, not to detract from their joy of playing, but is technology a factor? What would you say to parents of young kids? Any advice there?
I think it absolutely will, just in terms of the access and ease to high quality kind of training information and support. That's what we're seeing. Kind of what used to be reserved for elite is far more mainstream now. There's a lot more opportunity to access that, which I think is probably good and poses challenges for sure. The other thing I think, and we haven't got there yet, but simulation and kind of that world and what that might be moving forward will be really interesting. I don't have a good answer, but I think we'll be seeing much more of it.
And it'll be more accessible because that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I see that there's a lot more coming down the pipe in terms of AI. We're already starting to see it with AI being able to analyze matches at volleyball and give immediate stats and feedback to many of our gyms. They will use a video tool during practice so that they can have athletes watch and see why when they move their body one way it worked versus another. But I think we're still very much in the infancy, and there's so much potential with that, and with injury prevention and just improved performance for sure.
Well, I know a number of technologies that do help athletes with the biomechanics, which is so critically important. We had no access to any of that prior to now. And AI is I think is a big factor in that. Ami, what would you say?
I would agree with all of the above. I think AI in particular is something we're seeing a lot more of in the industry. It's definitely something GameChanger is exploring as well. I think that, the injury prevention stuff is also something I see kind of growing bigger and bigger. There's more, some of the stuff GameChanger builds, for example, is pitch count reporting to make sure that athletes aren't overusing their shoulders and things like that, right? And so I do think all of the things that were said already we're definitely going to see more and more of.
And GameChanger, by virtue of the video that's provided, like real time, you can actually really break it down. The coach has more access to how to break it down, how to advise the player authentically and scientifically even.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot more opportunities to do that when you have the footage, and like Jen was saying, I think it kind of is starting to resemble more and more some of the elite experiences, right? Elite sports experiences.
Well, I cannot thank you all enough. I feel like we could sit here and continue chatting. It's such a great conversation. I am so grateful to you all. We're just about out of time. So I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you all, Jen, Kim, and Ami. This has been really, really interesting. And I just want to remind everyone to learn more about the work we do at WIS. Please visit our website, womeninsportstech.org. Our community is free. All access to all of our content is free. If you are a student, we are about to open applications for our WIS fellowship program that could allow you to do a summer internship inside a company that you dream of. We all know the impact that internships can have on young adults. So thank you all. Join us on social media. Stay tuned. We'll be putting all this content out for everyone to enjoy. So thank you.